So, good evening and welcome, storytellers of Cybermouth and beyond. This is such a wonderful thing for me. I was really not expecting that this would come to pass. When I first heard about the Immersive Arts Fund, I looked at the website, couldn't really make head nor tail of it, and thought, oh, you know what? I'll make sure that Caron knows about this. And Caron, who provides the live stream at Beeston Tales, and she's been a producer on a few things that I have worked on in the past. And she said, yeah, I do know about it. And also, I'm doing a workshop on one of the funds on Tuesday. I mentioned that on Cybermouth, and there was some demand to go to that workshop or have our own where we can just sort of cozy up around one another and ask all sorts of questions. So, thank you so much to Caron for being available for this. As you all know, she's doing it free of charge, but there is a link if you want to make a donation to Safety Curtain, who are a fabulous charity looking to make arts more acceptable, more accessible on a global scale. They do great work, and that is a link to a particular funding drive that Caron is part of. So the immersive arts funding stream, I'm going to be very honest. As I said before, I've sort of looked at the website and found it to be kind of very enthusiastic and cheerfully written, but not really explain exactly what it's for or how you get it or what they're looking for. So I'm really looking forward to having someone who actually knows the answers to these questions talk me through before, yeah, before I go on to actually decide whether or not I'm going to try filling in a form or not. So, Caron, that was the obligatory Tim feels the need to host and welcome everything that he's put into. I hand the floor over to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much, Tim. Yeah, I am that producer, stage management geek with dyslexic neurodiversity who can't make head and tails of most websites. But if I think there's something interesting, I have to copy all of the text into a document and then read it paragraph by paragraph. And it's the only way that things kind of go into my brain. So when this came along, which I knew I needed to follow on, and let me just do a this is the formal presentation-y bit of it. So make sure I've got all the there we go. So um, this is me. There I am, sat at the bus stop, waiting to go to Beeston Tales, I think, with my box in tow, which you can see there. And that's the box that I have all of my in real life Zoom in the room tech, a little sound desk, microphones so that we can mic up the people in the room. And when Tim tells his stories and the Beeston storytellers tell their stories and amplify themselves marvelously to the room, we need to have that pickup for the digital audience. So that box provides that facility. Now, this journey for me started in 2021 when I was awarded my DYCP, which is the Developing Creative Practice for the Arts Council. And part of that was to explore immersive technologies, find out what is going on. I was a stage manager that had been doing social media and digital stuff, so I can do audio engineering and I can do lighting design, but I was really taken by virtual reality back in the 90s when I was a child. I was a very, very small child. Um, but I was always enamored by the virtuality of being able to be embedded in technology. And then in around about 2006, I discovered Second Life and started doing virtual worlds, three-dimensional websites, really, for theatre companies, where Pilot Theatre were a touring or are a touring theatre company. They have a head office in York Theatre Royal, but they didn't have anywhere you could go. So the artistic director at the time, Marcus Roma, we went to a conference and then didn't go to any of the conference and spent all the time in the bar deciding what the world for Pilot Theatre was going to look like. And so I'd been interested in all this immersive, but it was really starting to, ramp and bubble up. And I'd heard of things like the Doctor Who fractured time and stuff like that, but I didn't really know what it all was. But having gone through that journey, I took a show to Edinburgh this year, a virtual reality musical, and got a little bit of funding from the Fringe Society. So that was quite useful. And then there's some projects that I've been putting together about immersive technologies that in March was awarded the Creative Catalyst Fund, which is an immersive academy that's looking at advanced technology and actually getting jobs in the entertainment industry rather than having to be self-employed all the time. How do you work for somebody? And then on there you can see a lovely rainbow squiggle with lots of dots, and that's the virtual immersive production studio. Because one of the things during my DYCP was that I had some money, and this is key for this 5K fund. So what we're going to talk about today is this 5K thread. There's 5K, 10K, and 50K. But the 5K, if anybody knows the DYCP 10K, it's kind of a mini DYCP. So where are you right now? And what would you like to do if you were able to explore and find out what social technologies were? And one of the key things with funders that I have found of late is that they like the story. They like to know the story of where you are now, what you want to do, and if you do what you want to do because they've paid you lovely money, what might happen, and also what your future might look like. So giving them the story of your travel with this money and making them feel very, very good about ultimately what you are going to give back to them in your story. And I think you guys would probably appreciate that more than anybody else. But part of mine was making sure I was paid properly. They do want to make sure that you put in rates to pay yourself. So it's perfectly acceptable for these funds. DYCP is the same for you to put funds in. And one of the things that I put into my application was some money for travel and accommodation to go down to Bristol and spend some time literally doorstepping. I didn't have a contact, doorstepping the Pervasive Media Studio. And Pervasive Media Studio, I knew, did immersive arts in Bristol, didn't know anyone else that did it, so I was going to go down and do it there. But whilst I was researching, someone here in Nottingham said to me, did you know that the university have got an immersive studio? They've got the mixed reality lab. I was like, they do? Tell me more. So they told me that Nottingham University has a mixed reality lab. They play with immersive technologies. They have a department where you can ideate with PhD fellows and technicians and make some work. So I was able to go back to the Arts Council and say, don't want to go to Bristol anymore, but I would like to use that money that I put aside for travel and accommodation, and I want to use it to pay myself further to extend my DYCP to spend time in Nottingham. And they said yes. So that's kind of brought me to this full circle of really being eager to share in the East Midlands and to share the knowledge of the funding that I've won so far. That's put me across at the moment 4 projects. I'm doing Androidica Lab, which is a big immersive tech project. And I'm doing Cyber Salon, which is a virtual reality space that can host storytellers. So I'm very keen to produce environments that storytellers can use. And then in the middle there, we've got A Little Face, which is non-player character, which is the show I took to Edinburgh, which actually I have taken a time lapse of, and I am going to be able to show you non-player character, the entire show in 30 seconds. And the orange button there, which is Fox and Hound, kind of takes my stories to the other side. And that is that Fox and Hound have the most simple show I have ever worked on. They have whiteboards as their set, and the actors draw on them with marker pens. We have lights up and lights down. So the scale of the work that I'm kind of doing at the moment, I wanted to give you a little bit of an insight into, it's not just high tech and techie stuff, but the story and how it augments with the technology is just as important for the funding, and rooting it in story is where you are going to get your success with some funding. So I always ask myself, what would you do if you won the lottery? And for me, it has actually always been the same. This is slightly better framed, and that is that I've always wanted to, if I won the lottery, fund and champion emerging talent, have a theatre venue or theatre company of my own, and provide a funding source to part finance emerging talent to make powerful theatre that audiences want to watch. That was what I want to do before technology was even here. And I want you to think about that as well. I want you to think about what would you do if you won the lottery? Hopefully you'd still be a storyteller. It wouldn't change what you do right now, but what it would do is, if money was no option, what is it that you would do? And I think in terms of this fund that we're looking at, which is 5, 10, 5, 20 and 50, if you apply for 5 this time round, there's going to be 3 more rounds. So you either don't get it the first time round and you can have another go at evolving your 5K, or they have said that if you get 5K and you explore immersive, having known nothing about it, you might then want to put in a 20K in the next round to experiment with some technology, because you know a little bit more about who's doing what technology is available, what story you would put in and what you might want on it. And then if you're really fast, you could on the third round put in a 50K to expand your idea and expand the project and show how it would go into a larger commercial setting. So the fund is running over 3 years, and you can apply each time, and each time you can only apply once, but that is the intention of that fund. And they have said that there will be fewer 50s than there are 20s and more 5s. So before we start actually looking at dissecting that website, this is where my journey has taken me so far. This was non-player character. It's a virtual reality musical where we have a physical audience sat in watching a performance taking place. The performer does wear a headset, but transitions between physically talking to the audience and being in headsets. We have 4 people on stage with Brendan, who is part of the story and is also taking part in an escape room type experience. But the venue itself has a 360-degree screen. So everybody in the physical audience can see what's being seen inside the headsets. And they also have a companion app where they can help make decisions. And non-player character ran for 24 performances at the Edinburgh Fringe. It was an experience. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner as kind of putting the audience bits together. We're putting the headsets in place, doing a warm-up. We had a live performance. But that performance, so you can get a little sort of shape of where I've become, I'm going to just show you in 30 seconds what the show looked like with one of the tracks of the show. And this is it for 30 seconds, and then we'll move on to looking at what you might want to travel to and where you're starting out from. So this is just a little look in very quick of non-player character.
Please hit pause, someone freeze the frame. What if life is just a series of the same commands? What if what then? No restart, patch, or hidden cheat. My 2 hands were never meant to carry me through. How about you? I gotta find my corner of the skybox. They say to
So we had
but
4
that's a
members of the audience up on stage with
they
Brendan.
can actually see right through me. Without a hero, I don't know who to be.
And he was looking at both playing
You've been in my idol stand spot. If you join me, it becomes a dance. Hold my hand, we all need a guide. Cause our biggest journey is waiting inside.
And for this program, this is the slide. All of these slides that are in this kind of salmon color are taken directly from their presentation or their website. So these are not mine. These are the slides that they've used. And for immersive art, they say, for this program, we mean art that uses technology to actively involve the audience. There's a big component to immersive arts that it's not about creating a piece of work that has technology. It's about creating a piece of work that works without technology, but the introduction of technology enhances the experience. But if you take that technology away, the question is, does the story still work? Is it still a powerful piece of storytelling, or will it just dissolve and disappear if technology breaks? And sometimes they go hand in hand, and that will change. But I think the stories and why you want to use the technology is a big part of, with the competition of this application, it is going to be, why is it so much more powerful with this particular interaction with technology, and what it gives to the audience. So they're interested in the use of virtual, augmented and extended reality. So virtual reality tends to be headset based, where you're seeing everything inside the headset. Augmented reality, that layering on top of existing reality, whether it's through glasses or whether it's through cameras or whether it's through camera phones, that there's something between you and reality, and you're layering something on top of it. And it could be visual, it could be audio, it could be a extra augmenting with physicality in some way. And then extended reality. And the term of extended reality tends to be different types of experience, so extending things through sound or sight. But immersive technology in itself at the moment is being defined as extended reality. So the show that we took to Edinburgh, which had a physical show with a physical audience, they had an app, we had virtual reality headsets, we had the projection, we were extending the realities that the audience was experienced to give them something extra. So we were extending reality into the web-based world, or you're extending reality into an audio space. So there's this sense of taking the stories into other worlds. So it's the creation of artwork that bridges between physical, digital spaces, engages multi-senses, artwork which connects people to each other and or their environment. And I've always said, people in tech do like to think they're first. And I have to say, 360-degree theatre with emotion, with engagement, with things taking place all around you, with different realities taking place simultaneously. Yeah, it's been going on since the Globe, 1599. I believe the immersion and suspension of disbelief that we try and get with stories, and where people are in those spaces at different times, is different. And for anyone who is familiar with the opera box of theatre, is that most of the people who were at the theatre and were in opera boxes were not really there to see the show. They were there to be seen by the audience. So those different perspectives that take place within a within a 360 environment is actually nothing new. And I think as storytellers, you probably understand that more than, any other performers, the story you tell and how you're focusing the attention. Things can go on, people are seeing things in other places, but you're guiding that narrative. As we move towards the looking at the application itself, because I do want to look at the 5K application itself and look at the questions and the word count and all of that stuff. This is very pretty, but this isn't the practical stuff. This was my perception of immersive when I started my journey. And that was Secret Cinema. I'd heard of Secret Cinema. And War of the Worlds, I knew that there was this physical promenade thing that you went through in a warehouse. And then at some point there was a bar and you wore a headset, and there was that swapping between worlds, and people were wearing headsets and being taken through places. Doctor Who Fractured Time, one of those big, expansive, immersive experiences that, for me, I want the personal focus of a story. I don't want to have to walk around and find the story. I want to be told the story, or I want to experience the story, but not while I'm having to move around. Hence, for me, immersive is still very much comfort of your couch, black box theatre, but playing with suspensions of disbelief and playing with stories and augmenting with technology. On the other end of that, what I learnt from my journey and where I find myself now, and why this immersive 5K of what it is that you want to learn and find out, and what do you know, but you don't have the money to go to some of these immersive pieces because they can be 50 or 60 quid a ticket, maybe 100 quid a ticket. You know, you might want to experience some of the storytelling and know what it's like to be in cabaret on the front row of their experience. But the chances of you having the money as a storyteller, as an artist, to actually be able to afford a £125 ticket, I think that with the right application, if that was something you wanted to put in, putting on £125 for a ticket you wanted to see, that would also, all these things you wanted to see, different storytellers, that would also be something that with the right story you could have. But this is immersive theatre group Chronic Insanity, and they are a small immersive theatre company based in Nottingham. They challenged themselves to make 12 shows in 12 months, and that was the first launch when the pandemic arrived. They easily went past that. If you want to check out Chronic Insanity's portfolio, it's a wondrous archive of what a small theatre company can achieve. But here, the virtual reality, they did a first demonstration of their portfolio. They just had 3 pieces in this exhibition in Surface Gallery in Nottingham. And this piece that was just a cheap tent, inside that tent, there was a sleeping bag and there was all the paraphernalia of a festival. There was a teddy bear in there. There was a diary that you could read, but it was very scruffy. But there were headphones dropped down in the middle, and you wore these pair of headphones, and once they knew you were okay in there, they zipped up the tent and they played you a binaural 360 audio piece, which was the unfolding of an incident that takes place at a festival. You hear people running around you, somebody walking around the tent going, is there anybody in there? Oh, I think you get the picture. But the audio was the experience, and it was just recorded during pandemic with quite a cheap surround sound microphone, and they cut it together, and it was one of their first pieces. But it was so beautifully simple, but it was the story that was powerful, and it was the spatial nature of the story that carried it through. And again, I think if you want to explore sound, you might want to use your Explore fund to go and seek out some of these experiences, be able to talk to the storytellers, be able to find out what tech it is they're using. So you might want to then experiment going forward. So this fund, start moving on to the funding bits and on to your good selves. There are, as I said, 3 strands. There's a 5K, there's a 20K, and there's a 50K. These next slides are focusing on that 5K. But they apply to them all. So who can apply? Individual artists, creative practitioners, or creative technologists. Arts-based organisations, small groups or collectives. Yes, self-employed freelance artists. Based in the UK, aged over 25, over 18, and with a UK bank account. Doesn't have to be a business bank account, doesn't have to be, but it has to just be a UK bank account. Don't have to be a limited company. You just got to have a bank account that they can just put your money in, and you can invoice them. What can you apply for? Always useful. It can be for project development, materials and equipment, professional fees, training fees, travel accommodation and subsistence, marketing, audience development, venue hire, access and inclusion. Now, those are across the 5, 20 and 50, but they are all what you can apply for. I think project development, materials and equipment for doing some exploration, whatever you deem exploration is, the importance of professional fees, training fees. They will fund courses, but they like them to not be with accredited universities or a part of an existing course. So if you're already a student, they've said that you can't then ask to pay for the last term of your course. It's got to be a contained course that's being delivered by an institution that isn't connected as a module within an existing course. As I said, travel and accommodation, I had that in my fund, but I realised I didn't need to use it, so I was able to reshape that from the Arts Council. But they definitely expect you to cost your travel. And with 5K, you're not going to get very far once you've worked out how much you might pay yourself. And we'll come to, it's over 6-month period, so it can be up to 6 months. It may decide that you want to explore in a month and do it all in a month. But once you've worked out how much you're going to pay yourself, you might not have a lot more left for your tickets or your travel. So you're going to be telling a story around what you want to do and why you think they should pay you for the time that you want to ask for that money to do what you want to do and what will come out at the end of it. So who is giving us this money? Who? And no one gives you anything for nothing. So the project is funded by a collection of funds that has been drawn from the Arts Council, Innovate UK, Arts Council Northern Ireland, the Welsh Council, the Lottery Fund, and Arts Scotland. So it's a whole UK pot of money that's been gathered together by who? It's been gathered together by what they're calling the consortium. And the consortium are Bristol University, the UWE Bristol, so and Watershed and Pervasive. So you can probably see in there that circle. That is the place that I thought I was going to have to go to, and as you can see, they're very much they're market leaders in this. So there's a real big presence down in Bristol where this is sort of being delivered administratively from. And then we've got, and I'm not going to go into all of these, I'll show you where the resources are, but there's Cryptic, Nerve Centre, I think of Glasgow, there's the Millennium Centre in Wales, Crossover, Unlimited is in Wakefield, and Innovate UK there. But the point that I wanted to include this slide is knowing who the consortium are and what their portfolio is may give you an idea about who you want to work with. Not directly, but they are going to want to know if they want to work with you, because they are going to have to write reports about the work that you have done and why they gave you that money so that they can do their reports to the councils and to the Arts Council. So the Explore Fund. What would you do with £5,000 to explore immersive arts? If you have a creative practice, but little or no experience of immersive arts technology, you could get funding, support, and advice to be curious and spark some new thinking. And that was what really drew me to this fund, is that they are considering for this 5K, they want to know your curiosity and they want to know that you're going to spark some new thinking. So whatever your 5K idea is of what you want to explore, writing the story that has the words that they will recognize. When they read these forms and they read your application, they've kind of got to hear themselves echoing back at them. And I suspect you all will be very good at doing this. It's ideal for the Explore strand of funding, aims to support artists, early stage exploration of immersive technologies, developing basic immersive art skills and knowledge, experiencing immersive artworks. As I say, you might want to have a bit of a budget there to go to some of these things that you know are happening or coming to you, meeting potential collaborators, and expanding your networks, their networks. So, you know, people who you want to meet as well. So I think you can see from who it's for, finding that balance between not having experience but having no experience. There's going to be a lot of competition for this fund. And I do believe it's going to be who tells the best story. The focus. Successful applicants will be supported for up to 6 months. And when I mentioned the consortium, successful applicants will be supported. The consortium need to know how they can support you. So knowing who they are and what they've delivered and suggesting who might partner you, or at least having an idea when we look at the application of where you might be able to drop a few little things in to demonstrate that you know who they are or where your region is and who's in your region and who you might want to work with will go very far. So the duration of their project by the arts producers and wider network. When to apply? We're nearly at the end. So the Explore Fund that we're looking at, the deadline is the 2nd of December, which I think is 2 weeks' time, just less than 2 weeks' time. So I think there is still time to at least frame it. And if you really do know what you want to do and it falls out of you, it might go off on the 2nd. But there is going to be some other opportunities. The applicants will get notified early February, and the Explore delivery period is March 2025 to August 2025. The experiment one, which is the 20K, if you do find that you're interested, same deadline, same notification, but it's a 9 month, so it's March to November, and there are significantly more questions and financial wranglings to go through to do that. It's much more like a DYCP on steroids, whereas the Explore is a DYCP mini. I think is the easiest way to put it. And then if you were really adventurous and decided that you wanted to expand, the Expand Fund has fewer questions at this stage, but there will be interviews in January and they will be delivered from March to February. And so there's 2 rounds of questions. So they kind of expect you to be one of the existing shows. So you can never guarantee if you're going to get the money, but my thinking at the moment for me is that I'm going to apply for the 20K and experiment with some technology. And then if I get any further, I will apply for a 50K to expand the non-player character, because it's already gone to Fringe, it's already been to an audience, it's already got its technology established. It would be great to work with Pervasive Media Studio and some of the consortium to maybe find a route to market in the UK for non-player character. So non-player character is a US based show. So Brendan is in LA and the technical director is Texas based. And so that is sort of what my thinking is around it. Of course, you know, so we end up at a white page, a blank page, and a blank page that we are going to look at the application form. But before we look at the application form, so I don't have to put it all at the end, I did mention that I am the trustee of an organisation called Safety Curtain. Safety Curtain is a very small charitable trust that has applications and responds to beneficiaries from countries that are devastated by war or famine or conflict, and it provides artists and storytellers with a stipend. So they tend to ask for medical payments, and so it is very much we fund their being able to live as artists and perform in their villages than having to leave to another city, go to the big city and not be able to tell stories and look after the community. So that is what Safety Curtain is all about. And every year there is the Big Give. And the Big Give, this was current on Tuesday, so I think there's probably 10 days now until it opens. And with the Big Give, we as the charity had to find patrons who would donate £4,000, and they will donate 8,000. They will double that, so we will get 8,000. So if we can get people to donate up to £4,000, they will double it. And with gift aid on top of that, it makes it actually quite lucrative. So if you have enjoyed today, and when we get through it, hopefully you'll enjoy it more, but there will be the link. And when that launches, I think it's on the 2nd of December. So if you put in your application, the next thing you do after that is have a donation of £5 or £10 to the Big Give and to support Safety Curtain. And on that, I'll go back to our blank page. we'll take a breath, and I will come off screen share for now. We'll have just a bit of a chat, and then maybe at 20 past or 8:30, or maybe before that, if you want to, we'll actually look at the application form. So thank you for your patience, and let's go back to all being in the room. Thank you. Any questions? Or
You're on mute, Sharon.
Oh.
That's okay. I was just murmuring to Jem, so that was off record.
Would you like to have a dig into the paperwork?
Something I was curious about. Well, first of all, thank you. Like, your explanations were really, really clear. I feel like it makes a lot more sense to me now. One thing I'm still a bit unsure on is how much of an idea are they expecting people going for the explore to have? So if it is something where, like for me, it's something I've not really had any experience with at all, but I think it would be really fun to. But how much are they of an idea, or like direction are they looking for, or is this is the stuff I do? I think it'd be cool to look into this stuff. Is that enough, or are they expecting an idea?
I think to get to be competitive, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, all of those ideas, brilliant. But the question is, can you tell the story that when someone who has been looking at application after application will be captivated by it, and writing it in the right format, you could have the best idea, but if you don't tell the story properly, it might fall through the cracks. So I think when we look at the application and you've got sort of 200 words, thinking about the person who is going to read it and putting yourself in a position of somebody who probably knows a bit about immersive arts, is unlikely to be a specialist in the immersive arts bit that you're interested in. So where you're coming from, why you think it will change the way you tell stories or the way your audience might see them. But I think with this explore thread, it's not as important to know what your audience is going to think about it. I think it's important for you to know how it will change the way you already do things. I think the more you can show that you're already doing something in a particular way, and that you want to explore the thing that you do, or the thing you want to explore directly correlates to what you've already been doing, that's going to be really strong, because there are bits where you have to include evidence of what you already do anyway. Tim.
Sorry, did you feel like you finished?
Yeah,
I just want to check the air, and you felt like that had covered your question. Good. So one of the things that really struck me hearing your presentation was when you mentioned like who was in the consortium, and I think that kind of clicked there. Like, oh yeah, part of this application is sort of like encouraging them to want to work with us. And I was just wondering if you had any advice for how to go about working out like who were the useful people in the consortium to kind of aim at, or to find out what sort of things they were experts or interested in, or even just, is there a page somewhere that's just a list of these are the consortium with links to their website, so that we can do kind of just a cursory little bit of research? It sounds like that would be a real edge in an application, but
that document, as I say, I'll flip back onto screen share, because what I can do, and say my geekery, where are we? So let me find we'll go into this in a minute. So I have got all of the documents downloaded, and if you put your email in the chat, if you're happy to do that, I will add you as a shared person on this folder, so you can just access these folders. You don't have to download anything for yourself. So I've got this. So it's this 5K one that we're at the moment, and I'm happy to add people to this. But what's in here is documents from ImmersiveArts, and they do have a funding guidelines. And in their funding guidelines document, everything that I've sort of shared with you, and some deeper stuff. I mean, think virtual, extended and augmented realities, engaging multiple senses, bridging the gaps between physical and digital spaces, connecting people to each other and the environment, changing the way we create and think, kind of mirrored in what they'd said in their slides. So I think this document, this PDF, is really useful. And just if people want to actually look at it now. Oh, and of course, at the moment, there's some emails. I will put some emails in a minute because, of course, this isn't got permissions. But in this document, collaborative leadership, they do say who the project lead is, and there's links to them. Oh, I'm opening the documents up. Who Watershed is, who the executive producer is, who the research partners are. Link to Watershed, say Nerve Centre on Northern Ireland. So if you were in Northern Ireland, it would probably be really useful to find out if there's some collaborative usefulness in Nerve. Cryptic of Scotland. So if you were Scotland based, it might be interested to see what Cryptic are up to. Wales Millennium Centre. So Watershed being down, we don't have a Midlands North representative, it's just Bristol. But you've then got Crossover Labs, immersive training and artist development in Sheffield. So if you were in Sheffield or that area, it might be interesting to see what they're up to. Always recommend looking for these companies in LinkedIn. And then in LinkedIn companies, you can usually see the people. And then you can see which people work for those companies. And if you know anybody who's 1 or 2 steps removed from them, so that's quite useful sometimes to see if you know anybody that already knows some of these people. Unlimited are Wakefield based. They are, say, commissioned disabled artists and changing perceptions of disability. So, if you needed access support, they're often a really good place to speak to. And then Exile Diversive initiative, prompting inclusivity in exile community in London. So if it was extended reality that you were particularly interested in, you might want to see what they are. But don't feel that if you don't have any connection with them, there's no point in putting an application. And I just think it's useful to know either what they've been doing, or when you look at your own work, being able to mention and reference people that you want to, who you're going to explore. I think that's important to be able to do. So this document is available. It was buried deep in their website. Well, not buried too far, but they just don't really do things very well. And so this is a really nice document, the 5K, who it's for, everything was in those slides. And you'll start to see from the slides that I showed you and the way they've worded this, don't be too clever on moving away from their language. You don't want to repeat it back to them, but at the same hand, they will resonate with their own words as if they, so I think one thing I've learned about application forms is try and use as many of their words as possible, but not sounding if it is repeating it just straight back to them. So yeah, that document's really useful. Has that helped him?
Yeah, thank you. That gives a good kind of way in to start thinking about who they're interested in us being interested in.
Yeah. Let me I can put those email addresses into here in a minute. What I want to do next, I think, is have a look at let me go to screen share. The 2 things that I'm going to pick a thing to share. This is probably the website that you came and looked at. And again, things that they've seen, sort of light and different things in space and music, and things that their photos that they're showing is a little bit of, what they're seeing as being immersive. But a lot of these words about the explore component, let's expand that. experiment, explore. Yeah, you see, I even set this up, and I still, you know, it's like I just want to get into your website. Yeah, thank you. So their explore strand. This is where I took the slides from. The words that they very much want to see. But as I say, finding your way in there. But the important bit, which I thought was really useful, is actually the questions. What is it that they're going to ask of you? And this is the form. I went through the form and extracted all the questions because it made no sense to me just flicking from page to page. And I like to fill in on the form. So, you know, once I've added you all to this, take a copy of this document, fill it in with your own stuff, put your notes on there. So what is the name of your proposal? It's 50 words. They just say, please provide a working title for your proposed activity. This does not need to be a project name, but it should communicate something about what you plan to do. One thing that I've always been told, fill that in last. That should be the last thing you write. And it should be the thing that is the first thing they will read. So if what's in that paragraph doesn't kind of set the rest of it up, you might want to reevaluate it. But the next question is, what will this fund help you to do? 200 words. Please tell us what you want to do. Describe how you would explore and use how you would explore and use. That doesn't make sense, and I copied that. How would you use immersive technologies and specifically outline the immersive aspect of your idea? So they do want to know what experience that you want to take a storyteller on. And you know, for some people you might already know that, and for some, me and Tim have talked about the possibility of continuing these conversations over a period of time to be able to come back and talk about what immersive technologies are. Maybe even get an opportunity to go to the, I don't know where all of you are based, but especially those that are in Nottingham, being able to make use of the Nottingham University and Trent University. So finding out where your university, if you've got a local university to you, what is their specialism? What, you know, what immersive things might you want to explore? Do you even know what immersive technology is, so to even know what to explore? I mean, it might be worth writing an application that just says, I know nothing, but I do this, and what immersive means to you, and what you might hope to discover when you go on your exploration. And, you know, if all of the explorers knew what they were going to find at the other end, they probably wouldn't have gone in the first place, because they would have already known it. So there might be a clever story that you can craft if you really don't know, but you want to have 5K and you can put a budget together of what does exploring and immersive mean, and word that into the application. How will this impact your creative practice? And again, you get 200 words. Tell us more about the specific skills, experiences, connections, or any other things you hope to develop or learn. Include details of how this could influence your creative practice. And even if you can't fill in this form at this stage for the 2nd of December, I think if you intend to do a DYCP or you want to approach any funder, being able to answer these questions in response to your creative practice is really valuable. So it may be that you just end up with 200-word paragraphs that you can bring to another one of these sessions that we can talk about what we put and how we phrase things. And next one is, please describe your creative practice in a few sentences. So 50 less words here, you get 150. Tell us about you and your work. For example, this could be a short bio, information on artworks, projects, ideas, concepts, themes, or research. So, you know, who are you? You're starting to tell them, you know, so you've started by giving them that, setting them up for what they're going to see. You've then got what you want to do. Hopefully it's something that they'll be curious to know, oh, how do they want to do that then? Then how it will impact you. Few sentences on who you are. And then you've got one or two of your creative projects that are relevant. So you're telling them about your past projects, artworks that are relevant to your project. If you want to, how you're going to explore immersive technology in relation, demonstrating what you're already doing. Might be something completely different. Again, comes down to that story. Then you can support your previous answer. You can put up to 2 web links or upload relevant works. So you get 2 URLs. They then ask you for the proposed start and end date. So, as I said before, it's March to August. You don't have to fill the 6 months. It might be that there are very specific things that you want to see. Now, looking at what is happening in the immersive sector between March and August, if there is a festival, a VR festival or an immersive storytelling event that you've been to before, but you thought you might be able to augment, or there's a technology conference, if you can specify things that are during that period of time and build your experience to explore around things that are taking place, in terms of the competition, I think you're more likely to be taken seriously at this stage because you've grounded it in reality. I think being able to ground your application into what you're going to do in those months. Now, one thing you don't have in here that you would have in an Arts Council application is an activity plan where you would say, first 3 weeks of March, I'm going to be doing my research and my booking of my travel. And you can kind of tell your story with the Arts Council. For the Explore, you don't get that opportunity to tell a line by line story of what you're going to do, when and where. So you get your beginning and end date. You get 150 words for providing additional information. Always good to use these areas, but make sure that it's something new that you're giving them rather than the repeating. You might feel that you've said everything you need to say. Don't feel that you need to fill it in. You won't be penalised. At least I've been told by people who have kind of said this talk. You won't be penalised for not using that. It is optional. If you've put everything above, that's great. If there's something you think would really give it that last little bit of competitiveness. And then it's the £5,000. What do you actually want to do with it? And it is presented to you in a table, number of budget items, what the budget item is, how much it is. They don't ask for a lot of information about what the item is, but a little bit of an explanation. And that is the depth of their budgeting in terms of the 5K. They've then given you in the application eligible costs, project development, materials. We looked at this on the slide when they said what you can and can't claim for. Access and inclusion. It's ironic that this is the first time this has come up as a line, but they are very keen to make sure that accessibility is written into and is considered. So even if your piece is not specifically exploring technologies for access, whether it's closed captions or audio description, having some kind of consideration of technologies you might want to explore that will make your storytelling more accessible in whatever technology remit. And that, they say, we will ask all successful applicants for details of their access requirements at the start of the programme and work with them to ensure the proper resources are in place. So they will also work with you if you've got some access requirements. The access support deadline has already passed for this one round. There is a deadline, I think it was like 2 weeks before, so it may have only just passed actually, the accessibility, but they have made it, well, not made it clear, might be the wrong word, but they are expecting you to have explored access to work rather than just expecting them to pay you a fee for your access support worker, but they will help you get access to work if that's required. Different conversation. So anyway, that is that application. I think before I come off is there anything else to show you? Probably not. I want to put the I know what I'm going to show you before we access fees. Storytellers, you probably, I would hope, have your rates, but sometimes it's useful, I think, to know what they expect or what they think accessible rates are. And for artists and practitioners, rather than being equity rates, which I tend to use, which are shockingly low, I was heartened to find that they have a pay rate that they recommended we looked at. And on this, they were saying that it would be perfectly acceptable for a lead artist and project manager to be charging £47.45 an hour. And up to 5, if you've got 5 years or more experience as a storyteller, that's £43.14. These day rates, and I think it's useful to know that you might want to do slightly less or slightly more, but this is an acceptable thing to be asking for, and working out your days that you want to pay yourself in relation to either the rates of the artists union, and the artist network one is slightly different, where they go on annual income for overheads. If you've got 10 years, if you've got 5 years experience, they're looking at day rates with overheads of 5k being £254 a day. So which kind of maps across, and if you have more overheads, it goes up slightly. But I just thought it was really good to set this foundation, because equity is certainly less. And if you were choosing to use these, that's stating where they're from, or you may find that the equity storytellers rates are good for you. Back on screen. I'm
just going to leap in, Caron, and say thank you enormously. Like I can't tell you how much easier I find a process like this if I've seen the list of questions that I have to answer. And that is so hidden behind, you have to register, you have to get all your so to have seen that is incredibly it just clarifies everything for me. I know I'd quite like to sort of have a bit of a mull and think through quietly, but what would you like us to do with this space? I'm also aware that we've been sitting down now for at least an hour. So is this a good point to sort of wrap it up? Would you like to take a little break and then maybe have a sort of space for contemplation? What's your vision for how we use the rest of the time?
Everyone else I'm happy to do a 10-minute break. But if people feel that they've got what they need, I'll put these email addresses in anyway, and make sure people can access it. And I suppose we could have going in and having a look at it, and be good to hear.
Well, so put it to the room. So just give me a wave if you are up for a 10-minute break and then coming back for a further conversation. Because if everyone is like me, sort of in a space now where now they kind of just need to go away and digest and maybe scribble things down, it'd be silly to keep this going. So who would like sort of to stay here a bit longer, or who feels like, oh no, that's forget the or, you can't do a hand on an or statement. Give me a wave if you want to carry on. Okay, so I think, judging by that enthusiastic response, everyone here is like, okay, that was good information, that was useful, but now we just want to kind of chew it over and let the cogs simmer and percolate. I've combined far too many metaphorical images there. I don't know what we're making coffee out of clockwork, but never mind. So in which case, go on.
I would love, before we get, if people have got work that they have found inspiring and relevant to storytelling, or virtual reality work that they've done, if they've got links to share that or to talk about experience of it. But has anybody else done any VR work?
Yeah, that's really interesting to know, isn't it? But
or been inspired by anything they've seen in VR that they want to try,
or immersive, because immersive can be, soundscapes. It can be working with technology that produces scent. It can be spaces that use textured fabrics in dark spaces. It can be, anything that you put your audience into a different state of being.
Oh, okay. So Fleur's work with saunas would count and would be absolutely which is really technical at all, but it's very immersive in sensory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's worth being careful here because their website, the website for the consortium, does expressly mention technology as being part of what delivers the immersive experience. So
Yes.
yeah, I think
As I say, I think so. Things like, and as I say, if people want to have more that might be a thing. I've got some documents that have got lots of different examples of how how technology is being used to provide vibrations, or it's been used in technology for people to trigger sensors that when you walk through a space, it turns on lights, and it may be the automation of the audience during a storytelling experience rather than having to having things working around them that they actually trigger the environment or things that they want to do. So yeah, having a look at what that might mean by looking at some immersive stuff.
Stuff that I've heard about. Oh, sorry. The only things I've heard about that are sort of relevant is like binaural things, like in podcasts. Um, the podcast The Walk is the one I know about, which was to get people to go out and go walking, and it's like a podcast where you're the main character, and there's like loads of sound effects around you, and people like chat to you in different ears and stuff, and like some bits you have to run because people are chasing you and things like that. And another one I heard about, which I don't know that many details about because someone just told me that they were part of it, was one where uh, it was two different people in a room and they both had headphones on, but their headphones were saying different things and telling them to do different things. So like one person might have like a meditation and it was like, oh, like be calm, like walk over and like say hello to the other person. And the other person had something of like, that person is not a real person. Like they're gonna come over and they're gonna try and say hello, but like know that they're not real. They're trying to eat you. Like, and that was the way that one did technology. Those are the only two that I know about. But I think it would be super useful to hear more things other people are doing for inspiration.
There's something I was thinking of adding to this 3.5 meter nature giant I built called Sovereign Nature. And we've appeared at many festivals and events with me walking around inside it and got wonderful reactions. But I think one of my next stages of that project could be immersive in a sense, in that I want to have about my person a loop of music, which I've already written. It's a 3-part harmony of women's voices with different natural sounds dubbed in over it. It's very sort of mystical, spiritual kind of thing that could play in a loop and would just be broadcast from the giant as she walks around and give her an air of mystery.
Yeah. And as
Would
I say,
that be immersive?
Absolutely. And I think that exploring, having that as your evidence piece, that you say, this is what I've done, because although they say 1 to 2 examples, that might be your example, but what you want to explore is knowing. I think one of the hardest things is knowing, well, what do you want to explore? And what you've just said to me there about you'd like to explore immersing people from the stories that you've written, that might be your first step to writing it. But yeah, anything that changes your state of perception and takes you deeper into an experience is, dictionary definition of immersive.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Right, I have just those that put email addresses in, I have given you access.
I think dive in, Sharon. Though if people have got lots of questions, things. I mean, I was really happy with the break idea. I just wanted to come back for some.
I think I'm feeling really stupid again because I don't know how what Jem described is different from having recorded music, say, in a theatre space, or it's just you're just going to be hearing the music outside because the giant works outside. I've missed that immersive connection in terms of what he's described.
I think the depth of immersion, and I think this is going to be the competitive element. There is a immersive company called Marshmallow Laser Feast.
Of course.
I'm going to bring them up on screen. Marshmallow and they have created immersive audio pieces that take place in spaces that have got projections. There tends to be quite a lot of projection in some immersive pieces. So you might think of, the Van Gogh experience that people, talk a lot about, that is taking artwork and projecting them. Whether something like that would get through because it's been done a lot already, but you might feel that you've never experienced any of those. So just finding 5 in your explore, you might say, I want to go and see immersive pieces that you do a bit of research of what immersive shows are. In fact, I'm going to do that search. Whereabouts, Sharon, whereabouts are you based in the UK?
In Somerset.
So immersive arts in Somerset.
We did go to Pyramid of Khufu in London. Horizon of Khufu. But whether that was artistic or not is,
I don't, as I say, I think
debatable.
It's always difficult to know what they're going to see as being immersive. But if you want to have a go at applying for it in relation to storytelling that you're doing, I think it's worth, you take something that you've already seen that you believe is immersive, and you say, well, I'd like to explore that and see what else relates to it. Until we see the first round of applications, which I think the interesting thing will be, if we continue these conversations with Tim, once the first round of applications has been won, we will have a set of applications to see what they did, to see who the winning applications were. And to sort
when is the next deadline? I'm assuming there will be another one.
They think that it might be early spring.
Uh-huh.
They think or at least the round will open early spring. And then the final one will probably be this time next year.
Because we're really busy leading up to December and Christmas.
Yeah.
Got a big project on.
So,
do you know if they'll give feedback for unsuccessful applications?
I don't know why they shouldn't. I was asked the question on Tuesday, and another couple of artists that I work with also asked the same question. It was asked in the webinars, and they emphatically said no, which people have been really outraged by, because, as my friend pointed out, to evaluate them, they have to surely go through some process of working out whether it relates to any of the other applications. So there is no reason why they can't. But they did seem to give an emphatic no. But we will see. But I also did say to them that I was interested in some of the consortium, and if I wasn't successful, would I still be able to connect with some of the consortium? And they were quite enthusiastic about people doing that anyway. So, I think until the first round has gone through, it's difficult to know. I mean, I signed up for the 20K application 2 days, well, after the webinar. I signed up and I was applicant 788. And that was just 24 hours after the webinar had happened. So there is going to be a lot of people applying for this. So it's going to be interesting how many. I think there are going to be thousands of applications. Whether they will give the breakdown of how many are 5, 20 and 50, we don't know. But yeah, I think having the opportunity to have a structured set of questions that you evaluate your existing practice and future ambitions against in terms of what technology you might want to explore will be a great exercise. How many people will get the money? I don't know.
And it's hard to say, I guess, if there would be going for people who have a good idea about what they want and have maybe dabbled in it a little bit or want better access. Whereas I imagine there's probably quite a few of us for whom, yeah, it could be really interesting, but absolutely bugger all about it, or haven't, And I mean, from my point of view, as Caron knows, I mentioned this before to her, but I've been doing a project with audio stories in the landscape that people pick up in the landscape, so it is an audio project. So I'd love to know more about binaural sound and making that 360 soundscapes, but it seems like because so many people are already doing that, it would be like, well, just go and find somebody who's doing it or hire them.
I think knowing, and this we don't know how much experience you need to have, and it is going to be interesting to see who gets these applications. But I know when I did my DYCP, I knew that I wanted to explore immersive technologies, find alternative sources of funding, and also explore live performance. I was very much just telling the story of what I wanted to do, and I was quite shocked when they awarded it to me. But I think it is about telling your story of what you want, what you want to explore. And they say you're a newcomer. And I think if you open by saying, I don't know anything, I am a storyteller, immersive is important. If it's audio focus you want to focus on, then weave that in there. If it's there might be a course.
I know I have looked up already. There is a 2-day course at Bath Spa, for instance, doing binaural sound. It's like a £250 course. I mean, that would be the sort of thing one would love to throw into the application.
Well, that would be perfect to actually build it around. That you want to pay yourself for a certain time. You want to attend that one that's and being at Bath Spa, very close to Bristol, I would imagine there's quite a lot of crossover there.
Yeah.
But I think basing it on a course maybe at your university or your local area that you might want to be able to go and see. I mean, you might find that, Darkfield are an immersive company. They create immersive experiences in shipping containers, basically blackout in a box, which is genius.
Where are they based?
Huh?
Where are they?
I'm not sure actually. I think they might be kind of they're either Bristol based or they are Nottingham based, because I know they've done some trials and stuff here in Nottingham. But Darkfield have a range of works that are in shipping containers that are often at festivals. So it might be that you find a immersive theatre company and you want to go and see one of their pieces, or you do some searching, you do some web searches about immersive theatre or immersive storytelling in your area, see what comes up. And this is often where you might find some of the AI technologies useful. So using something like Perplexity AI. So I don't know if anybody's ever used immerse. In fact, I'm going to Perplexity Let's have a look. So, for example, perplexity. Tell me about immersive theatre in the East Midlands. So, East Midlands regions offer several immersive experiences. The Stardome Planetarium, never heard of that. That's interesting. Nottingham Seance is an intense interactive performance, 360 degrees. Seance is one of Darkfield's. I didn't give it a specific date or time for this particular question, so it's just gone back through the entire history of immersive arts. But Seance is one of Darkfield's pieces. And Surface Gallery, the Hear No, Speak No Evil, which is what I've just told you about, Chronic Insanity, it's brought up. So you might ask something like that, have a look at where they are, and kind of say, you know, you live in, especially if you're in in a region and you want to stay at home, you don't want it to be London based, or if there is a London trip you need to do and you couldn't do it because of the cost, telling that story of where the things are, why you want to do them, and why having the money will make so much of a difference. For my application for the Fringe money that I was awarded, I put together, it was £2,500, keep it Fringe. Why did you want the money and what would it help you with? And I did an application that says, I want to have money to pay my hotel. If I was getting an equity stipend, if I was on equity doing Edinburgh for that amount of time, this is how much it would cost. And it was much more than £2,500. And I said, so with this money, I would pay this much of my accommodation. But I also said that because I was a producer and I was quite new to I was the first time I'm going to Edinburgh. I wanted to be able to take people out to dinner and I wanted to be able to buy them drinks without feeling embarrassed that I didn't have any money. And they gave me the money to take producers out for drinks. So I think they want to know that what it is you're going to do with the money will impact you and make a difference. And if you can reflect it back to your own access needs, if you can reflect it back to your socioeconomic status, if you can reflect it back to your position generationally within the world of technology right now, that you feel that without this money, you just wouldn't be able to justify taking it out of, you know, the money that you have that you spend on your family, or, you know, you always find that your money gets spent on your children, and therefore you want to have this money as an artist and as a storyteller. You know, you might drop in a line there that, you know, people don't always take storytellers seriously and think that we're not, you know, you might find just a little way of making it a little bit more conversational about why it's important that you go and see this thing. They do say, and I haven't mentioned so far, they do want you to apply for the full 5K. So you can't like go, oh, I just want £1,000. You are expected to tell them what you want to do with the full amount. And what I will do, just so people can have a chance to think, and I know we didn't have a break, but I'm just going to say 5 minutes, just a chance to turn your cameras off, turn your mic off. I'm going to go and get a glass of water, and then we'll just have a wrap up if there's any other questions. But then it just gives you a bit of thinking space away from the screen. So,
Caron, I'm actually going to say my goodbyes now because I'm going to turn into a pumpkin at 9 o'clock. But thank you enormously from me, and
okay.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks for arranging it, Tim.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.